everyone. Jax West from Stephen Avery Project, Justice with Jax. Oh, and of course, my dogs wait until I start this video to start barking their heads off downstairs. So, Justice with Jax, MAM Gossip, and Stephen Avery Project on Facebook. And it's Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central, and we are live. Today we are covering the Making a Murderer case. Sup, cat? And we're covering Brendan Dassey specifically today because somebody sent me a link to and hey, Bryce and Rebecca. Somebody sent me a link to the full unedited video of when Michael O'Kelly, I don't even know the right word to describe what he did to Brendan because it's not an interrogation. It's yay, you made it. So Michael O'Kelly, for those that don't know who he is he was hired by Brendan's then defense attorney, Len Kaczynski. So he is supposed to be working for Brendan. Hello, Jen. Yet it is clear from the very beginning that his purpose is to help the state prosecute Brendan for the alleged murder of Teresa Halbach. This is not what your defense team is supposed to do. Let me, before I get into this video, come on me now. Yeah, couldn't get past 10 minutes of that video. I know. It was, and I just watched it this morning. I'm trying to bring up on my other screen here, but my internet is working crappy. Whatever happened to Michael O'Kelly? Hello, Andrea. Nice to see you. And Kim. All right. So this article is what happened to Michael O'Kelly after a making a murderer update. I don't need to read any of this. When a statement from Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey, turned into a confession that he helped Stephen Avery kill Halbach, Dassey's public defender hired Michael O'Kelly to help him find out information about Brendan Dassey. Michael O'Kelly was a known expert. It should say expert. Oh, and now here's somebody already that everything just keeps freezing on because I want to get rid of this person. Put user in time. Sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at once. I don't know if my moderator is here. Okay. So they should have expert in quotes. I keep getting distracted, sorry. He was a known expert on cellular technologies, being called in to help clarify technical points made by a defendant. Michael Kelly was also known for taking his role as a cell phone expert further than just making statements about the technology in trials. In 2012, he was kicked out of a case for visiting the defendant, even after it had been found his testimony wouldn't be needed. So it's easy to see how Michael O'Kelly, expert and unofficial investigator, might be helpful to helping Len Kaczynski, Brendan Dassey's public defender, get a reliable statement from Brendan without having to go through the normal channels. Since being brought up in Making a Murderer, a lot of people have been wondering who Michael O'Kelly is and what he's done since Dassey's conviction. Um, in 2001, the Sacramento Daily Recorder ran an article about Michael O'Kelly. In short, the article explained how O'Kelly was one of, quote, a dozen elite practitioners, unquote, of a, quote, truth detecting technique, unquote, scan, which relied on exploiting linguistic deviations in statements. In the article, O'Kelly claims his technique is more dependable than a polygraph. Of course he does, right? An example of his technique is that if one were to say, quote, when I was a kid, unquote, then that person was probably molested. How many times have you told a story and said, when I was a kid? So just so you know, that means you were molested. Also, if you say three, you're probably lying. Presumably, Michael O'Kelly continued offering his services as a human lie detector to various defense firms, somehow ending up on the radar of Len Kaczynski, who hired him to help with his murder suspect, Brendan Dassey. Talks about Kayla, um, and then Brendan being questioned by Fassbender and Wiegert. Um, Len Kaczynski, Brendan's public defender, was aware of this confession when he was appointed. Before ever meeting with Brendan, Kaczynski held a press conference where he stated, quote, we have a 16-year-old who, while morally and legally responsible, was heavily influenced by someone that can only be described as something close to evil incarnate, unquote. This made it clear that Kaczynski's approach to Brendan's defense was to admit guilt. While on the surface, it seemed as though this may be a smart move for Brendan. If he admitted guilt and testified against Stephen Avery, he would see a reduced sentence for his own crimes, especially considering his mental handicaps. However, the O'Kelly's conduct called that into question. In order to get a more clear idea of what has happened, Len Kaczynski had Michael O'Kelly interview Brendan Dassey to help clear up the inconsistencies in Brendan's statement to investigators. Immediately prior to interviewing Brendan Dassey, O'Kelly arranged a selection of photographs on a table. Photos of Teresa Hawk, a picture of her church, a blue ribbon like the one memorializing her outside that church that they don't have here, but that Michael O'Kelly put up himself, and more gruesome photos, such as her burnt bones, recovered in Stephen Avery's fire pit. With this display set up, O'Kelly brought Brendan Dassey into a room and showed him a form. This form is brought up in Making a Murderer, but the legal implications of Brendan filing it are glossed over. And then it's got a screenshot of what Michael O'Kelly's little form says. So it says self interview and information survey, my explanation with details. We have developed inside information that you have not told us everything you know about this incident. This is now your chance to tell the real truth about what happened and write in detail everything you know. We know everything that we need to know except for two of your reasons why this incident happened, when and why it did. Let us know if is all capitals and underline, if you are sorry, and if you can is in italics and underlined. Promise you will never do this again. Choose which of the following option applies for you, and is underlined. Then write your first name is underlined inside one of these boxes. I, and then the box, am very sorry for what I did, or I, and the box, am not sorry for what I did. If you are truly sorry for what happened, please explain why you are sorry for what you did. I promise I will never do this again. And then a line that says underneath it, your signature when you agree. I, and then a line underneath again saying your signature because you agree, am now finally willing to tell you the real truth and will do what is right. I will explain what and why this happened. Now, my explanation with all my details. The form asked Brendan if he was sorry or not for what he did. Notable be construed as an admission of guilt. So if Brendan Dassey form, it could be viewed as contributing to a narrative of confession. What is most interesting is that did it, he would know it was wrong. This completely eliminated any ability for Len Kaczynski to argue his client's mental handicaps were enough to warrant exculpating him of his crimes, and meant that the one strong piece of leverage the defense could have had was taken away by themselves. Later in the interrogation, Brendan was shown the results of his earlier polygraph test. Well, that's not when you watch this video, it's in a different order. While this test was officially inconclusive, page 31, O'Kelly told Brendan that it demonstrated he was lying when he claimed innocence. That is, O'Kelly lied and said Brendan was caught lying, despite there being no evidence that Brendan's statement of innocence was false. Yeah, I know it keeps buffering here too. Sorry, guys. It could be seen that the Michael Kelly's interrogation of Brendan Dassey and this form are the most clear evidence that, as Brendan's currently, as of January 2016, pending appeal alleges, Len Kaczynski offered ineffective counsel. Okay, so Michael Kelly after making a murder. Blah, blah. Since the case, Michael Kelly has continued to act as an expert witness. A lot of the press around him has been due to his high fees of services, which are rarely used in actual trials for which they are rendered. In 2010, O'Kelly was listed as one of the defense's expert witnesses in the now infamous Casey Anthony trial, although he never gave testimony. In 2011, he was billing himself as a forensic cell phone data consult, was paid $24,304 by the state of Illinois as a defense expert in their case against Christopher Coleman, who was sentenced to life in prison for murdering his wife and two sons. O'Kelly's testimony was not used. In 2012, Michael Kelly, now using the nickname Cell Tower Mike, was paid $102,994 by the state of Texas as a defense expert in a case against Ricky Cummings, sentenced to death. O'Kelly was never even called to testify in this case, and the state was unable to recoup their expenses paid to O'Kelly. Initially, O'Kelly had been hired to examine cell phone records, but billed the county for 14 visits to Cummings, actions which eventually got him removed from the trial and contributed to Cummings seeking a retrial. In March 2015, O'Kelly was a speaker at a conference held by the Nebraska Criminal Defense Attorneys Association. There, he presented on the topic of cellular forensics. And then in 2018, he was involved in a murder trial in Michigan. There, he was charging what the judge referred to as, quote, one of the highest fees, unquote, ever paid for an expert by the prosecuting county. Yikes. So this, oh, okay. Just saw that Christopher moderator is here, so he'll handle any more spammers that come on here. So the video that somebody got by Freedom of Information Act request is almost 3 hours long. And so I watched it this morning and I have 4 pages of notes. So I am going to go over my notes in the order of the video. The video starts out with Michael Kelly setting up the crime scene, because this is a crime what he did to Brendan, in my opinion. Um, he's putting all those pictures and stuff all over on the table. He put a blue ribbon, which and you saw that in Making a Murderer, when Michael Kelly then would get choked up on the stand because of the blue ribbon that he himself hung there on the church at the church and took the pictures of. So he's so emotional about this blue ribbon that he hung up. Um, then all of a sudden Brendan is at the desk and he's just looking straight down. Um, there's also a laptop on the table with all the pictures, and that's where Brendan's alleged polygraph result is. And that he claims to Brendan that it shows that he, by a percentage of 98.98, he said, and then said 98% that Brendan was being deceptive. Brendan didn't even understand what it was, because um Michael Kelly throughout this keeps questioning Brendan, and Brendan just has no idea what he's saying. And that's always something that really bothers me, that law enforcement and losers like Michael O'Kelly, who's working for law enforcement, can lie to you to try and get you to say whatever it is they want you to say. So one picture he shows him is of the dead end sign near the salvage yard, where he's telling Brendan that's the last sign she saw. And then he said, you know, don't you think that, means something? Hey, Debbie. That, I think he used the word prophetic, to Brendan, who of course would never know what prophetic or profound would even mean. That the last sign that she saw had the word dead in it. Um, then he showed him a picture inside Steven's trailer, and Brendan didn't even recognize what the picture was. Um, he showed him the ribbon, asked him if he's ever seen the ribbon, and Brendan said he saw the ribbon on TV once. And then Michael Kelly tells the lie we hear all the time from people. I know everything I need to know. But then, except for two things. And so then he's questioning Brendan with, what do you think those two things are? So this video that's almost 3 hours long, a lot of it, there's a lot of silence because he's questioning Brendan on something. And then you've got the time that Brendan is just looking down and trying to think of an answer. You do not get the impression of a kid that's caught, that's guilty, and how do I get out of this? It's the kid's not understanding what's going on. And what does this guy want me to say? Clear as day. Um, Eventually Brendan says to him he doesn't know. He doesn't know what those two things are. And then O'Kelly is just, think about it. And so then eventually Brendan says, if I helped him, when Brendan answers these questions, the end of every statement, the voice is trailing up, making it a question each time. If I helped him. And so then O'Kelly says the two things. Are you sorry for what you did and promise never to do it again? And then he tells Brendan to read the form, the one that we just went over. Brendan says, I don't know because I didn't do nothing. And then O'Kelly says, if you're not sorry, then I can't help you. Do you want to spend the rest of your life in prison? You did a very bad thing. And then Brendan says, I was only there for the fire. And then O'Kelly says, look at me. Someone will cooperate and tell the truth. I prefer that it's you. And then O'Kelly tells him, you don't get to go home now. Someone died. O'Kelly says, we know what happened. Just don't know if you're sorry. And then he says, Steve says she and Bobby were together. So that's the first I'm hearing of that. And then Brendan said he knows that Bobby wasn't with her because he knows a friend of Bobby's friend who said that they were hunting together. So that'll be that Michael Osmondson guy. Then O'Kelly shows him a picture of the bullet from the garage. And he has Brendan check the box saying, I am very sorry for what I did. And O'Kelly says, last time we were here, what you wrote was not the truth. Do we agree with that? Um, he said that he doesn't want to go to prison for the rest of his life for hanging on to some lies. O'Kelly says, tell me your family history that would get you to do something like this. And then he says, if you say even one single lie, I can't help you at all. And then he refers to himself in the third person, otherwise known as douchebag speak. If you write a lie, then Mike can't help you at all. Then he says, I specialize in working with folks like yourself so they don't go to prison for the rest of their life. So he's just totally misleading Brendan the entire time, that if you just say what I already know and what I want you to write down, I'm going to be able to help you. Brendan writes something and hands it to him. And then O'Kelly says, no, I need a true full statement. Teresa's missing here. So that'll be the first thing that we had seen that Brendan wrote, where he again is just stating the truth of what happened that day, that he was never there at all. O'Kelly says, are you sorry? It's a yes or no. Would you do this again? And then he's demanding that Brendan look at him, because the whole time Brendan's just looking down in his lap, you know, and that's what Brendan does all the time, is he's just looking down. But plus then you've got all that stuff out on the table and Brendan doesn't want to look at any of it, so the kid's just looking down. Brendan says, they told me they knew what happened already. And O'Kelly says, and you told them even more. Brendan said, I was guessing, which brings us to whoever had come up with that phrase that I so bad at remembering, that we made a sticker of, that I think is just the perfect description of the Brendan Dassey case. Guessing is not confessing. And then Michael Kelly says, you told him about the bleach and the bullet. O'Kelly says, you can try to help yourself and do what's right, and I'll help you, so you don't do life in prison. And then he says, I want you to testify against Stephen and tell the truth. If you decide not to, then your confession will come in, even if it's not true. See, he even says that, even if it's not true. And there's nothing I can do to help you then. If you want to go to prison for the rest of your life, Let's just take their words. You can't help yourself with those words. It's not the truth. There's missing information. And so now Brendan writes another page and another page. And then O'Kelly is having him do those stupid drawings where O'Kelly is directing him everything he wants drawn and where. So he says, like in this part, show him shooting her in this picture. And then Michael O'Kelly says, where's he stabbing her? Draw that over here. Where did you have sex with her at? Draw that down here. Where did you stab her and cut her hair? Brendan said he cut her hair in the house and stabbed her outside. And O'Kelly says, was she alive when you stabbed her? Brendan said no. Was she in, O'Kelly says, was she alive in the garage? Was she screaming? What was she saying? And so Brendan just says, don't listen to him. So he's claiming that Teresa kept telling Brendan not to listen to Stephen. O'Kelly says, draw a picture of you cutting her hair. Now draw her laying on the bed. And then he says, how come she didn't get up from the bed? See, again, leading, so now Brendan's got to think what would be going on that she wouldn't be able to get off a bed. Why couldn't she get up? And so Brendan says, tied up or tied down is what he said, tied down. And O'Kelly says, what with? And Brendan says, rope, which isn't the answer that O'Kelly wanted. So then he says, what else? And so Brendan says, cuffs. Again, voice going up. He's guessing. It's a question. He's guessing. Cuffs. So O'Kelly says, what kind? And then Brendan says, leg cuffs. Now Brendan gets onto another page to draw more pictures at O'Kelly's direction. He tells him, draw a picture of the bed and her tied down. Draw it big so we can see it. Brendan asked, how does he draw the chain? And O'Kelly says, I don't know. I didn't see it. Well, neither did Brendan. O'Kelly says, what about her hands? Were they chained also? See, so Brendan didn't draw her hands chained at that point. He's only doing what he's being led to do. So it's tying her legs down. So now it's, what about her hands? So now he knows to draw something with her hands. So what about her hands? Were they chained also? Brendan says, rope? And O'Kelly says, was she wearing clothes? Brendan thinks and says, no, on the floor. O'Kelly says, draw that. So he draws like some clothes. And then O'Kelly says, what about shoes? So now Brendan's got to draw shoes. O'Kelly says, show a picture of the bed. Or he shows Brendan a picture of the bed and says, where did the rope go to? Put an X there. So now he's showing him a picture of Brendan's bed and wanting him to draw on the actual picture where the ropes were tied on the bed. O'Kelly says, what was she saying when she was tied up? Brendan, the common sense answer to that is, let me go. And he said that Stephen said if they let her go, she would probably go to the police. O'Kelly asked, how long was Stephen planning this? And asked, was it Stephen's idea? And Brendan said, I think he wanted to do it because he wanted to go back to jail. And O'Kelly questioned why that would be. And Brendan said, some days he couldn't control his temper. O'Kelly asked, what time did he go to the trailer that day? The real time. Brendan says 8 p.m. Okay, so this is again going with what truly happened. The story, when Brendan is able to just tell it of his free will, the story doesn't change. You'll also notice when Brendan is able to tell that, it flows. There's no thinking, there's no pausing. I get off the bus, I go home, I play a video game, Blaine's boss calls, Steven calls, and I go to the fire. And I mean, it's just all simple, comes out like nothing. But now when he has to struggle to come up with the way they want him to tell it, he's got to pause, he's thinking, he's reaching, everything's a question, the voice going up. And there's no way that Brendan, because his mom comes home at 9 o'clock or whatever it is, during alleged prison break. Um, so for them to be doing this raping and killing and throwing in this fire at 8 o'clock, but then everybody going back home by 10, the fire's not hot, and it just, the 8 p.m. thing does, the timeline totally doesn't fit at all when you go with 8 p.m. But here's Brendan again. What time did you go over there? 8 p.m. And that was right away. Brendan's able to answer that right away. 8 p.m. And so Kelly says, "So you were cutting her hair and having sex with her after 8 p.m.? How did you know she was in the trailer?" Brendan said, "Steven told me to follow him into the trailer. He showed me her and told me to have sex with her. I was thinking of going home. After I was done, he told me to cut her hair off. We took her off, meaning the bed, and bring her outside to garage and stabbed and shot her. That they carried her out to the garage." O'Kelly says, "Where did he get the gun from?" And Brendan said, "Bedroom." And then O'Kelly said, "What kind?" And Brendan said, 22. And then O'Kelly tells him, "Draw another picture of how she was tied up." And then asked, "Was she wearing any clothes when she was tied up?" And Brendan says, "No." Um, Brendan said that they stabbed her and put her in the fire. And O'Kelly asked, "Was she still alive when she went into the fire?" And Brendan said, "No." O'Kelly says, "How does he know?" And Brendan said, "She wasn't moving. She stopped when Steven shot her." Where did Steven shoot her? In the stomach? Where else? Heart? And then he's asked, "How do you know that she was shot in the stomach and the heart?" And Brendan said, "Just guessing, because I wasn't looking." And then he's like, "Okay, well, how do you know she was shot?" And he said, "I heard the gunshot." And then O'Kelly says, "Maybe he was trying to shoot you." O'Kelly asks, "What was she saying while he was shooting her?" Brendan says, "To stop." And then O'Kelly says, "What did she sound like exactly?" And Brendan said she was crying and telling him to stop what he was doing. O'Kelly says, "Was there blood in the garage?" Brendan said, "Yeah." And then O'Kelly says, "How do you know it's her blood?" And Brendan said, "I cleaned it up." And then O'Kelly asked, "How many times you think he shot her?" And Brendan said, 5. O'Kelly said, "Why 5?" Brendan said, "That's how many shots I heard." O'Kelly asked, "Was the fire already going in the pit?" And then Brendan didn't understand. And Brendan said, "Behind the garage?" Because behind the garage is not the pit. The pit, they call where all the cars are parked, the pit. Um, so Brendan eventually says, "Behind the garage?" And O'Kelly says, "Yes." Um, and Brendan says, "Yes." And then um O'Kelly asked, "Was it a small fire?" And then Brendan just says, not really. He's asked who carried her. Brendan says Stephen carried her. O'Kelly asked where was the knife and where did the knife go afterwards. Brendan says, I don't know what he did with it. It was in the garage behind the lawnmower, laying on the floor. And so then O'Kelly says, draw a picture of the knife. And then O'Kelly asked, where was the first place she was stabbed at? Brendan said, in the garage. Okay, but that's not what we've heard originally. It was when she was laying in bed. Where did you know? Where did you know? Oh, when did you know he was going to kill her? Brendan said, I don't know. O'Kelly says, when did he say he was going to burn her? Brendan said, that night. O'Kelly said, did he tell her that he was going to burn her? I don't know, I just thought that was. And he really didn't get an answer out of Brendan on that, because the whole time Brendan is just kind of mumbling and looking down. And it's hard to hear Brendan a lot too by how quiet he is. O'Kelly asked, how many times did he have sex with her? Brendan said he doesn't know. And then O'Kelly asked, what did he tell you about having sex with her? And then asked, did Stephen have sex with her? And then he asked, did Stephen use any sex toys? Brendan said, I don't know. And O'Kelly says, do you know what a sex toy is? And Brendan doesn't respond. So O'Kelly says, something you put in a girl's vagina and vibrates sometimes. And I was like really pissed off when I saw that part. Brendan says, no. O'Kelly says, did you see him touch her at all? And Brendan said, just to pick her up off the bed. O'Kelly asked, where was her car when she was in the garage? Brendan said, I don't know. And then O'Kelly asked him what was in the garage. And Brendan said, a snowmobile and a lawnmower. And so now O'Kelly tells him to draw the garage. O'Kelly asks, how many times did you stab her? Brendan said once in the stomach. And then he also said Stephen stabbed her in the stomach. O'Kelly says, why do you think she was in a lot of pain? What was she saying? And Brendan said she was crying a lot. O'Kelly said, how long was she crying? Brendan said, until he shot her. And then they went outside and put her on the fire. He said they stood 15 feet away from the fire. Then his mom came home and called Stephen and said, I have to be home at 10, and asked if I had a sweater on. He said his mom called at 9. He said they waited a bit and the fire went down. Then it was 10 and Stephen said I should go home and go to bed. I see, and this again, see how many words and everything and how this just flows, because this really happened. Okay, so Stephen said I should go home and go to bed. I talked to mom about how her day was and I went to sleep. And then O'Kelly says, did you sleep pretty good that night? Brendan said, not really. He only had 3 hours of sleep. And then he said, in third hour class, everybody was laughing because my head was bobbing because he was falling asleep in class. So now Michael O'Kelly says, what was Stephen saying when she was in the fire burning? Brendan said, not much. That I should keep my mouth shut. O'Kelly said, where was the Suzuki at? And Brendan said, the gray one, it was on the side of the garage. O'Kelly said, how did he get her car down to the pit? Brendan said, I don't know. O'Kelly says, I heard Chuck and Earl knew it was down there. Brendan said, I don't know. Now O'Kelly takes Brendan off screen, off camera, and walked him over to show him a picture of where the RAV4 had been found at the salvage yard. Brendan said he never saw the car. Then O'Kelly takes him back to the stuff that he had been making Brendan draw, and then now gives him a red pen because he wants him to write stuff on it. So the first one is, write the word garage, so now he has to write a word to describe everything he just drew. And then the next thing was what time everything happened. So wanted him to write the time all these things were going on. Brendan asked him, "How do you spell Teresa?" And Michael Kelly says, "However you think it should be spelled." O'Kelly asked, "Where did the rope come from?" And Brendan said, "Garage." O'Kelly said, "What happened to Teresa's clothes?" Brendan said they ended up in the fire. Um, he put bleach where the blood was and used her clothes to clean it up because Stephen had told him to grab them from the floor. O'Kelly asked if Brendan was holding her also, and Brendan said no. And O'Kelly said, "Not even for a minute?" And Brendan said, "I was grabbing clothes and shoes." O'Kelly asked, "Was she begging for mercy?" Brendan said, he said, "Yeah." She said, "Please stop." O'Kelly said, "Was she crying?" And Brendan said, "Yeah." And O'Kelly says, "How much?" And then O'Kelly says, "Did she mention God before she died?" Brendan said, "No." O'Kelly said, "Did she mention anybody's name?" Brendan said, "No." Um, O'Kelly asked, "Did Teresa, did he think that she knew she was dying?" Brendan said, "Not that I know of." And then O'Kelly's having him write more times down, but he doesn't like the times that Brendan wrote down. And now says, "What did you do from 5:30 to 8:15?" And here we go. "I came home, played PlayStation 2 till 5, called my friend, watched TV, got a phone call at 6 from Blaine's boss. At 7 o'clock, got a phone from Steven. He didn't go over right away. Steven called again and asked where I was. I said I was getting ready." O'Kelly then, because whenever Brendan starts going a direction that he doesn't really like, he's got to, bring things back. So now O'Kelly says, um, "Also need to put that Stephen was watching Brendan, like when he was raping Teresa, if that's true." Um, and then he tells Brendan to write what she was saying. So if you've seen the picture, you see the little, cartoon bubble with the words put in there. Um, mm, mm, mm. Okay. "What did Steven say to you about it the week it happened?" Brendan said, "I don't know." O'Kelly said, "Why didn't you tell anybody?" And Brendan said, "I was afraid to." O'Kelly said, "Afraid of what?" And Brendan said, "Afraid the family wouldn't like me anymore." And then O'Kelly says, "Which family?" Brendan says, "Mine." And O'Kelly says, "Why?" And Brendan says, Cause he was with Stephen." He asks what Stephen was wearing. Brendan says, "Shorts." O'Kelly asks, "What color?" Brendan says, "Red." And then O'Kelly said, "What color was his top?" And Brendan says, "Green." And then O'Kelly says, "What happened to the clothes? What else did he burn besides Teresa and her clothes?" And Brendan said, "Tires." Then O'Kelly calls Len Kaczynski and he tells him that Brendan has given him a detailed statement. And then he asks if Len wants him to call Fassbender and see if he wants to interview Brendan. He tells Kaczynski that, in his words, "quite well, very well," meaning how did it go? Um, Then he starts talking about, so apparently O'Kelly had had some kind of car trouble. So he's telling Len that the driver's side tire split the rim and it cost $360 for one tire. He couldn't believe it. And then he says, "This is a nice jail facility." Then he says, "Brendan's doing quite well." An officer comes in and takes the phone from um, O'Kelly to talk to Len, because what O'Kelly was asking for at that point, if Len could have permission to speak to Brendan with his phone. So now he's got permission, so he takes the phone over and hands it to Brendan. Brendan's just quiet, and it was seemed like to go on forever. And then Brendan says, "I think about it." And then you hear him say, "Okay, okay," and then gives the phone back to O'Kelly. O'Kelly says to Len on the phone, like Brendan's not even there, "Does he understand how valuable it can be from him? That's my concern. We can do so much to save him. That won't do any good. I explained to him the value. If there's a change, I'll call you back." Then um the phone call ends and Brendan is still there, like trying to write whatever O'Kelly's wanting him to write and stuff, and on these pictures and all that. And O'Kelly keeps walking around taking pictures of everything in the room, and Brendan and what Brendan's doing. Brendan says, "What do I put for the state?" And then O'Kelly says, "What state are you in, do you think?" And Brendan says, "Wisconsin?" And then Brendan asks him, "What time is it?" Because so on the form that he's filling out, it's asking, "Where are you? And now what is the time?" And instead of just telling Brendan what the time is, oh douchebag shows his watch on his wrist for Brendan to try and figure out the time on a watch. And then O'Kelly says, "I'll explain this to you. You're writing a truthful story to help yourself. You're not going home. It was wrong, and you're sorry, and you have to go to prison. I'd like you to testify against Stephen. That's the right thing to do. Do you agree?" And Brendan just goes, "Yeah." O'Kelly says, "You told me same story you told police. I'd like you to work with the police." And then Len gets on the phone again. But um nobody was there or whatever. And then he says to Brendan, "My concern is for you, and I'd like you to cooperate with the police. If you work with them, I feel the Hallbach family would also support you for doing the right thing. You can't bring Teresa back, but you can do the right thing in her memory. She would want you to testify against Stephen. I'm more than willing to be with you when you talk to the police, because this is a guy that just wants the attention, and I'm sure it makes him more money the more time he spends, right?" O'Kelly says, "This is pretty important for Teresa." And then he asks Brendan to talk to the police that night. And Brendan said he didn't want to talk to him that night. There was something on TV he wanted to watch. And so then O'Kelly says, "How about tomorrow after breakfast?" So Brendan says, "Okay." O'Kelly then calls Len again. He tells him that Brendan wants to watch TV tonight, but we'll do it tomorrow after breakfast. O'Kelly tells Brendan, um, "Want you to give everything to the cops." And then he's on the phone with Len and is laughing. Hangs up with Len, and then he calls Fassbender. Tells Fassbender that Brendan would like to visit with you folks tomorrow. He says he prepared a document for me, and it's up to you if you want it, but that Len said that this could be a discovery issue. Um, I'm trying to read my own writing. You send him. Okay, that now I understand what my own writing. He's telling Fassbender to send Len an email so he can get authorization to question Brendan in writing. Then they end that call, and O'Kelly calls Len back and told him or asked him to call Fassbender's cell phone. Don't call him. Don't call him at the station. Call his private cell phone. And then he tells Len to ask Fassbender to call him in the morning when he's gonna go see Brendan so he can join them. O'Kelly then says to Brendan, "What else do you think? Who moved the Suzuki to the pit? Who moved his mom's van to the pit?" Brendan said, "I didn't know that those cars were in the pit." O'Kelly said, "Did Teresa even go near the Suzuki?" Brendan's not really responding. O'Kelly says, "Who else knows that he killed her?" "Your grandmother?" Just trying to drag in family members. Then he says, "What does his grandmother think?" Brendan says that he didn't do it. O'Kelly says, "What about Chuck and Earl?" Brendan says, "I don't know." Now O'Kelly says, "Does Blaine know what you did?" Knowing that Blaine is Brendan's closest sibling. Brendan said, "Not right away after that first interview." O'Kelly says, "How much did you tell him?" Brendan said, "When we went to Fox Hills." O'Kelly says, "Is that November?" Brendan said, "February." O'Kelly says, "Did you tell him you had sex with her too?" Brendan said, "No. I just told him I was by the fire." O'Kelly says, "With her body?" Brendan says, "No." And then O'Kelly says, "He knows you were there when she died, right?" Almost trying to shame him. "Did you tell him things about Teresa?" Brendan said, "No." And then O'Kelly says, "Who else have you told besides me?" Brendan said, "No one." Brendan said, May 4th, they questioned his mom why he was losing weight. See, again, this is a lot of words, no pauses, just comes out. So let me start from the beginning of this sentence. If I can, May 4th, they questioned my mom why I'm losing weight. It wasn't because of this. I was trying to impress my girlfriend, but then when I met her, she broke up with me. My friend said he knew another girl who wanted to go out with me. And the day I was supposed to meet her, I was arrested that day. And so O'Kelly's response to that is, "How many times have you thought about suicide?" Brendan says, "Never." And then O'Kelly says, "How about hanging yourself in the garage? One of your friends told me that." Brendan said maybe he was talking to his friend about his future job. O'Kelly says, "What's the future job?" And Brendan said, "Suicide bomber." That's what Travis had said one of his future what he would like one of his future jobs to be. And so it's like clear too by even saying suicide bomber that Brendan doesn't completely understand what a suicide bomber is. And then O'Kelly asks Brendan if he ever thought about suicide bombing his school. Brendan said no. And O'Kelly says, "But you have problems at school." And Brendan's answer right here, I was just in that one moment, I'm like, "Oh, Brendan, you great kid here." Um, and because Brendan's response was, "Most everybody does." O'Kelly says, "Do you feel better right now?" Brendan says, "A little." And then O'Kelly says, "Good, you're doing the right thing." Brendan says, "But it kind of sucks because I can't talk to my friend without ordering a phone card," which to me is showing again Brendan has no concept of what's happening to him, does not know that he has just confessed to murdering somebody, because he goes right into he's just concerned because he can't talk to Travis because he doesn't have a phone card. O'Kelly says, "What are you going to watch tonight?" Brendan said, "Wrestling." So that, okay, I'm going to throw out that nice question for you and then go into, what do you think should happen to Steven? Brendan says, "I don't know." And then O'Kelly says, "How come you knew that about her plates being taken off her car?" Brendan said, "I didn't know that." And O'Kelly says, "You told police that. What do you think should happen to you?" O'Kelly says to Brendan. Brendan says, "Probably quite a few years." O'Kelly asks, "How long is that?" And Brendan said, "Like 10 to 15. O'Kelly says, "What if they gave you 20? Would that be fair for what you've done?" Brendan said, "I guess, or I guess so." O'Kelly says, "It's better than life without parole. Think you can keep this between us and not tell anyone?" Uh, Keep this real quiet. The whole thing makes me angry. And right now, this is where I come unglued, because the officers are on their way to take Brendan back to the cell. And so Kelly says to Brendan, "Want to take this with you? Something of Teresa's." And whatever that was on the table, it looked like a scrap of fabric or whatever. That's what he's pointing to. And then O'Kelly says, "Let's stop for this evening, unless you have questions. And then you'll come back in the morning and we go from there. Thanks for doing the right thing. It will be hard facing Stephen." Again, trying to push him. "We need you to testify against Stephen. It will be hard facing Stephen, but I'll be there in court. He can't get to you." Pats Brendan on the shoulder. He calls the officer, then says to Brendan, "Want this?" and hands him the missing picture of um Teresa Halbach. So a picture of Teresa. "Want this?" And then he picks up the scrap of fabric or whatever that was of Teresa's and moves it right in front of Brendan. And then he shows him a picture of the RAV4. "Did you ever see her car like this?" The officers come in. Brendan grabs that scrap that O'Kelly wanted him to take as the officers put their chains on Brendan, wrap it around his waist, and connect his hands to the chain on his waist and take him away. And that's the end of the video. I don't know how this man can live with himself. I don't know how any of these people can live with themselves on what they have done to Brendan Dassey. And I am sure Brendan Dassey isn't the only person they have done this to. Look at all the money, as I read to you, that O'Kelly has made, being the expert on cases that he then doesn't even do anything on. Brendan never says anything, just saying it. Everything he says, he is led to say. Where was the bed? Draw this over here. How did she look here? Draw this over here. Did she say this? Everything is put in his head. And also remember, he's been interrogated by Wiegert and Fassbender before this, and things were planted then too. And the kids also seen TV and know some of the things that have been there. And he's got these pictures all in front of him. So Brendan has a low IQ, but he can also figure some things out too, and what you want him to say. But when they ask him questions that he doesn't know the answer to, why doesn't he know the answer? Because he wasn't there and it didn't happen. The kid has a hard time coming up with the answers and will just say the most simplistic responses to everyone because he knows that's what they want him to say. But when he's able to just say what he wants, just comes out easy. Got off the bus, walked home, played PlayStation, get these phone calls, talk to my mom. Mom leaves. Steven calls. I I go to I go to Steven's around 8. My mom calls around 9 saying I have to be home at 10, and mom is concerned, cuz it is Halloween, the end of October in Wisconsin. So does he have a coat, a sweater, as Brendan says? All these things that they're having Brendan say could not have happened between 8 and 9, basically, of whatever time. I don't remember for sure because now remember that, Barb has also been lying about what time she gets home, when she talks about Prison Break, because Prison Break starts at 7 p.m., and so she's claiming that, um, after they had visited Scott Taddock's mother in Green Bay, Scott drops her off at home, and then she gets her car and drives to Scott's to watch Prison Break, and she said it wasn't recorded. So you're watching a show that's already been on for over an hour or whatever. Or no, yeah, yeah. So Barb's timeline doesn't work either. But Brendan, I watched this, I played this, got this call from Blaine's boss at 6. Um, Blaine had left that day to go trick or treating. It's not in here, but we know it from other things. It was Brendan didn't go because the costume that Brendan wanted to wear, Blaine was now wearing. And so Brendan stays home and doesn't go trick or treating. He knows Blaine's boss because he's also worked for Blaine's boss. So Blaine's boss had called looking for Blaine, and Steven calls, and his mom comes home at 5, then leaves with Scott, and then I mean, he knows all these things, and it's like that when it comes out. But how he encounters Teresa and any of it happening, none of he doesn't know. And he's saying she was shot in the stomach and the heart, and she shot 5 times. They didn't find 5 bullets. There's that only the one magic bullet. Excellent point, Kat. Let's not forget Stephen talked to Jody as well on Halloween. So there is no way they could have killed Teresa and disposed of her before the phone call with Jody. And I had asked Stephen back when I used to talk to him, I feel this is an important point. Back then, he could only talk to Jody on a landline, and he had a cordless phone. So I said to him, can you talk on your phone out by the fire?" And he said he couldn't talk to somebody in his own garage. He didn't get the reception from, this is 2005. So, Yes, we have these calls that when you listen to them, does it really sound like Steven has just raped and murdered somebody, and you're in this frenzy that you have to cover up this crime, and that you'd be, like, short-tempered with her or something? You'd be able to tell something that something is going on there? No, you can't tell anything's going on, and by the times of these calls, because there were several, he has to be in his trailer. He can't be out by the fire tending the fire when he gets those phone calls. So, how is this fire this hot, this quick that Brendan so the whole rape Steven's raping her, Brendan's raping her, they're stabbing her, cutting her hair. They carry her out to the garage where she stabbed some more and shot a whole bunch of times and is carried out to the garage. So all that's happening in an hour. 1 hour. Because Barb's coming home 9ish. None of this adds up. Brendan is 100% innocent. I know there are people out there that believe Steven is innocent, but that Brendan is covering up for another family member. No. I know Brendan is protecting Bobby now because he's got his mom who he thinks is his world, telling him that Bobby is innocent, and the only people that his mom lets him have contact with are also selling Brendan this bill of goods that his family all loves him and cares about him, when all they're doing is protecting Bobby and Scott and making sure Brendan stays in prison. These people do not have his best interests at heart. None of them. None of his supporters that are okay with what this family is doing to Brendan and Steven, they do not have these guys' best interests. But Brendan was not a part of anything to happen to Teresa Halbach in any way. That kid could not harm a flea. And you just what they're trying to say about him with oh, he lost weight because he was upset about Teresa, which isn't the truth. But that is the truth, that if he did truly witness something, you'd be able to tell from the kid. I'm not saying it would be losing weight. I'm saying you would be able to tell that kid is racked with guilt. When I used to talk to Brendan on the phone, I would ask him, since hunting is a big thing in the family. Brendan's not a hunter. He loves animals. He's a simple kid. So he's not hurting an animal, and he's sure not raping and being a part of somebody being murdered, whether it's Stephen, Bobby, or anybody. Brendan is not doing it. And if Brendan did witness it, he would have told somebody. He would have told somebody then, and he would have told a million people over the years that he's been incarcerated, especially after Making a Murderer came out. And now he's got all these little fangirls that will write to him. He absolutely would have said something to them, and they would have sold the story. Brendan has never confessed other than this with Michael O'Kelly and with Fassbender and Wiegert, which when you watch it, it is clear he is being manipulated to say these things. Steven's story has never changed, other than when he's originally questioned, he couldn't remember if he had had a fire that night. So he's questioned on, I believe it was a Thursday, and this had happened on Monday, and he couldn't remember if he had a fire. And so I think that's where some guilters will say, "Oops, see, he switched the story whether he had a fire or not." And I go, "Bullshit. When you live there and you don't have garbage service, and so they regularly burn things so they don't have to go to the dump every other day to drop stuff off. So it's very easy to, did I have a fire that day or not? It's just any other day for Steven. didn't stand out to him. Did I have a fire that night or was it the other night? Because he also had an argument with Barb. He had another fire that week and he wanted Brendan to come to the fire and hang out with him. But Stephen had gotten to an argument with Barb, telling her that her kids are pieces of crap and aren't going to amount to anything because Bobby keeps stealing from the salvage yard and dealing drugs. And she's never home. You even hear on that call with Jody when Barb comes home and then Barb's leaving and he's like, there she goes, she's leaving again. That she's never home with her children. Brendan is 15, 16 years old, and she's constantly leaving to go have her affair with Scott Toddick because she was married to Tom Yonda at the time this happened. They were now separated and in the process of getting a divorce, and Tom Yonda didn't live there anymore. But she had been having a long affair with Tom Yonda, who is Scott Toddick, or with Scott Toddick, who is Tom Yonda's cousin. So she was leaving her teenage, high school age boys home alone while she's out with the dude she's having an affair with. And so Stephen and Jody would talk about that. And so he's seeing what's going on there with these boys and that um Brendan's not the smartest. Blaine's not the smartest. What's going to amount to, what are these kids going to amount to? Is it Steven's place who to give anybody parenting advice? No. And I would totally understand Barb getting pissed off at him and arguing with him. Get that. There's nothing wrong with Barb being pissed off for Steven for talking shit about her kids. But they argued about her kids, and then she, for that night, wouldn't allow Brendan to go to the fire with Steven. Let's slap Barb. Another sticker. So fires are a regular occurrence. And Steven by himself, because his girlfriend's in jail for her 11D DUI. And so Brendan's typically home because he doesn't really have much of a social life or whatever. So it's Brendan, come hang out with me at the fire. So that's the only thing that Stevens had ever gotten wrong or wasn't sure on is was there a fire that night or not? But everything Steven says is the same. Always been. Steven also would have confessed to somebody and said something, not a jailhouse snitch. I don't believe anything from jailhouse snitches, period, whatever. I know we've heard that story before. But Steven also is surrounded by people who his best interest isn't always in mind for them. And then there's so many people that write to Steven. Eventually, if Brendan was or Steven was guilty, he would say something too. Never has. Never. You think that gold digger who he was dating during that period of time, and then, she went on the Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil's a piece of shit too. Um, she went on the Dr. Phil show in the wedding dress and that whole thing. She knew what she was doing the whole time in manipulating Steven. That chick was still married to her cop husband from Vegas. So if there was anything to get on Steven, she would have been able to get it out of him, and she would have had it to sell. She's got nothing other than, ooh, I feel this. I feel blah, blah, blah. She doesn't know anything. Steven would have told her. And she would have told the world, sold it to the highest bidder. There's nothing. Steven and Brendan are innocent. And this is a huge miscarriage of justice. And watching this video, this full unedited video of Michael O'Kelly is just disgusting, and that man should be in prison. And someday, when Brendan finally goes free and gets to sue for his wrongful incarceration, Len Kaczynski and Michael Kelly should be named in that suit. Rebecca saying, "Don't forget Jody's lies as well." Jody is a big piece of shit too, because she knows Steven is innocent because she was talking to him on the phone. She knows it. Their relationship didn't work out. She doesn't like Steven. Maybe Steven wasn't always the nicest to her. Get all that. The state was doing everything they could to keep those two apart, and getting Jody in trouble with her, that she couldn't be around somebody who's incarcerated or whatever, and getting her on. I get it if she just wants to walk away from it all. But for her to then switch into saying he's guilty just because she's mad and doesn't like him anymore, that's a piece of crap too. She knows she's on the phone with him. She knows it didn't happen. She lived in that tiny trailer. She was in that tiny trailer after the alleged incident happened. She knows nothing happened in that trailer other than the cops trashing it, looking and planting evidence. Another excellent point, Kat. Stephen admits to his wrongdoing. Stephen admits to wrongdoing that he was just there, but takes the blame for. The whole thing of the cat in the fire that Stephen didn't do, but he was there and he was laughing. I condemn anybody like Pete Dassey was there when they put the cat in the fire. They were all there. Nobody stopped it. They all laughed. It's not cool. I don't like that somebody would burn a cat. Doesn't mean they murdered a person. Stephen took blame for it. People always say he's the one that threw the cat in the fire, and he didn't. But he takes the blame. I was there. Broke into that bar, stole the sandwiches and rolls of quarters. Takes the blame for that. He never said anything to make him look guilty in the Penny Bernstein case. Could have got less time. But he's not going to say that he did it. He didn't do it. He's never said anything in the Teresa Halbach case. And the only thing they truly have in this case is Brendan's confession. That now you've watched the Fassbender Wiegert interrogation, and now we have the complete O'Kelly. And both of them, it is obvious to anyone that this kid did not say these things himself. These were all things that he was led to say. And none of it makes any sense or matches the alleged crime scene and the timeline. None of it. It's so infuriating. Oh, Rebecca saying wants a sticker. All the stickers that we have, I do have a Justice with Jack's Etsy store that we um will send the stickers anywhere. So okay, there's the Let's Slap Barb. We already showed you the guessing is not confessing. Free Stephen Avery. Free Brendan Dassey. Don't get strange. We all live on Avery Road. Justice with Jax. Justice with Jack's vagina bat. Can't really read the writing on here. Justice for Melissa Kaluzinski, who I'm going to visit on Monday. This is my first visit back with Melissa in 4 months, 3 months, 4 months since they were put on lockdown again for COVID. So I'll be there Monday morning. Rebecca, silly question. Did they do a blood draw on Stephen when he was arrested? Uh-huh. And was swabbed? If yes, could that be where they got his blood from? Yes, they did draw his blood that day. And they also looked at they swabbed his, as they say, groin. Could that be where they got blood from? There's all that, um, um, so they didn't have the authority to draw his blood, and Fassbender and Wiegert were there when they took his blood, and so then when it was and it's just weird that Fassbender and Wiegert are there when at the hospital they're doing the whole blood thing, but so then when it comes to their attention that they didn't they weren't authorized to do this stuff, the nurse went to throw it away. So did Fassbender or Wiegert get that? The keys planted, the bullets planted, the RAV4 is planted. So blood in the RAV4 is planted. Clearly looks like a Q-tip smear. And there's just no way that with your finger being cut here, how does your finger in turning a key in the ignition hit that dashboard to make that smear? Doesn't happen. It was spoon fed to Brendan. And nope. Yeah. Brendan's mom is more concerned with Bobby and Scott than she is for Brendan. It's sad. And then Barb prevents anybody who truly is looking for justice for Teresa Halbach to have any contact with Brendan because she has to protect that lie. I'm going to call this to a close because I've been on for an hour and 22 minutes now. Um, I'm supposed to be doing these live videos every Wednesday at 1:00. I had made the schedule of every Wednesday on what different cases we'll cover. And that's kind of fallen off the rails where I couldn't do it a couple weeks because I was helping my husband with his work. And now we've gone off on a couple of these things. So I'm not sure what's happening next Wednesday. We post it on Facebook on all of our pages, the Stephen Avery Project, Justice with Jax, and in the MAM Gossip. So who knows what I will cover next week for sure. It's just somebody sent me this video and I'm like, you know what? Maybe and I didn't wanna watch it because it makes me so mad, the whole O'Kelly thing. Yeah, she needed beer money. Um, but I figured since this is the first time we're getting it complete and unedited, all right, I'll get into it. I am considering taking my notes and writing an article and posting it on Stephen Avery Project because not everybody wants to watch either the original video of the full thing or this video of an hour and a half, and maybe they just want to read what's in that video. So perhaps I will write that up. Um, but I don't know when. So you just got to stay tuned to our Facebook pages and I'll try and tweet it too. We've got the couple of Twitter pages or whatever they're called, but I'm not a twatter. I don't like to twat. And so I'll sometimes make posts there or tweets or whatever. Um, so, and as Bryce, I think, reminded people early on, make sure you like and subscribe to this video, because then when YouTube is working properly, you might get notified when I go live for sure. We try to do it the Wednesdays at 1, so we have something that's consistent. But if there's anything that's breaking in the case, or something's happened that's pissed me off and I just want to come and go live, then you could get notified that way. Um and then there's the Justice with Jack's Etsy store. If you are interested in any of those stickers, they're priced really low. There's no money being made on these stickers. I can't remember what they're priced at. Christopher is the one that puts everything in the Etsy store and does it, but they're really cheap and there's no money being made. And if there was a whole bunch of money being made, I have multiple times given money to both Stephen and Brendan. So, but there's trust me, there's no money being made on anything here. So if you come across any news, or there's anything you would like me to discuss, then you can send me an email to either justicewithjax@gmail.com, or we've got official Stephen Avery project at gmail.com. So, and if you're somebody watching this and you know something about the crime, please contact Kathleen Zellner. You can go to her website, KathleenTZellner.com. She's got a page with ways you can reach out to her just on Stephen's case. Or if the family implodes. Absolutely, Kat. Because there's people out there still that know things that even at the time that this happened, you may have gone to the police. We've already heard from multiple people who had gone to the police at this time, and the cops have covered it up because it's not fitting their narrative that Stephen did it. So go to Kathleen Zellner. Kathleen is Stephen's best chance and is also Brendan's best chance at this time. So there you go. Thank you, everybody, for joining me live. And those of you who will be watching later, we've also got, if you go through the different folders or whatever they're called here on YouTube, we've got all these other past lives we've done on this case and other cases. And when we've gone to Manitowoc to show things there. And there's videos also on our Facebook pages on Stephen Avery Project and in MAM Gossip. Yes, Jen. And Johnny Depp hired Kathleen Zellner for his case against his horrible ex-wife. So I keep hoping Johnny Depp will then do something to spotlight Stephen and Brendan, and of course Melissa Kaluzinski, that is also represented by Kathleen Zellner. That, you know, I love that girl, and really want her case to get attention and somebody to help Melissa Kaluzinski. So, all right, maybe I don't know, maybe next week's live might have something to do with my visit with Melissa that I'm going to on Monday. So maybe that's what I'll talk about on Wednesday, is Melissa's case and how Melissa's doing and what the prison was like now after this time that they'd been locked down on months. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. But all right. Thank you, everybody. Until next time, investigation continues.